Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. How y'all doing? Hope everybody's doing absolutely fantastic. Now it's time to go back to sleep. Night, everybody. Okay. Nope, it's sleep time chat, no streaming. We're just gonna lay here and sleep. Fine, fine. I suppose. If I have to be awake, I guess I can do that. But only for you all, okay? Wake up. No. I'm back to sleep. Fine. Sleeping next to Gene ASMR. Oh, that would be the worst. Can you imagine? Gonna be me snoring for a couple hours because I feel congested this morning. No. I kinda got sleep. I don't get enough sleep. Good morning, Catacomb. Hi, Catacomb. It says first time chatter, but I could have sworn I've talked to you before. Because I remember the X over the Ohm. How's everyone doing today? Morning, Nia. Let me give a little. Thank you, Dor, for getting first. Thank you, Hattie, for getting second. Thank you, Nia, for getting third. Good morning, nap time, and pink, and vividly dreaming. And ocean and echo. Thank you, all of you who checked in this morning. I do really appreciate it. Why are you so excited, Hattie? Hey. Nia, I only said half of those things. Don't you be putting words in my mouth. So today we're going to do a little poetry reading, as we do. And we're going to be doing some Minecraft. It should be fun. I also can't wait to show my horror audio with all of you. Unfortunately, I couldn't share it with anybody yet because, well, apparently the competition's even particular about me sharing it in private. But I imagine it's because they want to be the one to share it out with people. Maybe they want to make sure that you don't cheat. I almost made you yawn. Hey, look at me. I win. Well, I'm very proud of you, Eddie. Good job. It's good that you yawned. You know why? If you look at a person and they yawn, and you yawn back, it means you're empathetic. You can empathize with the person. But if you look at somebody and you never yawn, well, that's a good chance that you might be a sociopath. Fine, I guess I can take you out to the bathroom. The bedroom. That's a different thing. Yeah, let me make sure that the bedroom's ready for you, okay? More psychopath, exactly. Good morning, beaming-eyed Bonnie. How you doing? Hey, by the way, have you done any more SCP reads? Or is that a one-off thing? Because I love the SCPs. You know, if you ever did the SCPs again, I'd be like, maybe I need to come check it out. Thank you for the follow. Oh, thank you for the 2 follows. I really appreciate it. Let me also mute notifications because I forgot to do them this morning. When do we get ASMR triggers? I suppose I can, once I get the other mic working. I've just been too lazy to make it work. Fine. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take you over to the bedroom. Floop. There. You happy, chat? You gotta go to the bedroom. I do have a 3DO. I just, never seems to work nicely because there's always such much background noise. No, come on. It's bedtime. Look, it's night outside. Look how dark it is outside. Why are you still awake? Doesn't matter. Ben, if you haven't slept yet, you need to go to bed. I'm such a good doggy. Thank you for the redeem. Exactly. Go to sleep. You see, that's what I don't like. I don't like doing any little background noises. You need to sleep. Good morning, God Mia. Thank you for the check-in. All right. Poetry reads. You ready? Of course. Enjoy your day. Nia, can I say how funny it is that our days are the opposite? Because whenever you come in at night, you're like, oh, perfect for ASMR to go to bed. And I'm like super excited and energetic. And then when I start in the morning, I'm like, okay, let's start my day slow. You're like, I want to go to sleep. Oh, I like this. Here we go. I could use a good old R&B lyric right now about how to face this hard absence, but it's a terse verse can approximate the testament, or the big arms of these arms circling my wide waist to close the space after all the years of absence. These big arms once more to close the space. I could use good old R&B lyric right about now to face this hard absence. Only its terse verse can approximate the testament. Sounds cute. Also, we had something written by Addie that was submitted. So we're going to take a look at that poem as well. Good morning, Pixel. Now, where did it go? I lost you. There it is. The mathematics of the void. Okay. Some nights I swear the stars forget their name, drifting like numbers erased from the chalkboard of God. Luck sleeps beneath my tongue, a copper taste, dull as old blood, waiting for the coin toss that never lands. Lonely isn't silence, not really. It's the echo that refuses to die, the hum beneath thought, the static between pulse and breath. Even the clock hesitates to tick, afraid it might wake what lingers in the walls. The void is not empty, it listens, it swells, breathing me in, an infinite lung of nothing that still somehow remembers shape. I feed it with my small sorrows, the one too shy for daylight. Luck, fickle, Luck, fickle architect, builds bridges of smoke. I cross them barefoot, pretending each trembling step is destiny, not desperation. But the bridge ends midair, as all bridges of smoke must. And so I fall again softly, through the hum, through the ache, through the hollow mathematics of cause and consequence. I reach for something, a word, a light, a pulse, but only the void reaches back, and in its hand I find myself lonely and whole, unlucky and eternal. I like it. It's cute. Mm-hmm. Mm. I do like it. Good morning, Shiny. Hi, lovelies. You know what time it is? My current favorite game, because of course it is. Mm-hmm. Minecraft. Oh no, I remembered what was happening last time we were playing this. For those of you who don't remember, once we were in the caves, beneath the ground, with two spider generators on either side. We're still playing hardcore. Mm. Okay, there we go. I shouldn't make you nervous. Why would I ever make you nervous? Hmm. I can't believe I make you nervous. That's crazy. Hmm. That's fair enough. Fair enough. Well, don't let me make you nervous. There's nothing about me that should make anyone nervous. Not a dang thing. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, super famous, totally. Mm. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know why I'd make you nervous. See, I'm glad we're on the same page. I'm glad we're on the same page, that you understand what I'm saying. Because why would that ever make you nervous? Mm-hmm. That I need. The rest can go. Wanted Wolf, thank you so much for the subscription. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you enjoy your time here. Good morning. Or good evening, or good night, depending on the time it is for you. Hopefully, today we find our way out of these mines. Because I don't know how long we'll be able to survive. Probably longer than I think. Definitely not as long as I should. And I don't want to upset Karumiya again. I've done that enough as it is. Oh, I forgot about that. I'll have to do that video eventually. When I have time. When I have time. I know, not yet, but if I die, you will be. Exactly, and I don't want to upset Karumiya. It's the last thing I want to do. Well, put in suggestions and I'll remember to do it eventually. When I have time. I know I've been this way. Do not forget there is an age restriction on the server, and that there is an age verification. We use a third-party site for ID verification. Which I know not everyone is comfortable with. But it is done for your safety as well as my own. I hate when I find these mines, and they're so gigantic, because I never seem to find my way back out. Except they're never big in the way that I'm looking. Okay, it's most definitely not this one. Oh, yeah? Well, glad to hear that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea, honestly. God, I didn't know you actually played Minecraft. Do you play it often? You're kidding me. Well, New World it is. There we go. Again we go. Oh, there's no way. What? What? I'll take it. $22. $4.22. Yeah, next time I need to figure out a better way to get through those. Because honestly, that's what got me, is I just got lost in that mine and couldn't get out. How is there a skeleton here already, chat? Oh, honeydew, how's your day been? How's work going? Thank you for coming to spend it with me. Mm-hmm. Sure is going. Oh, well, I hope it gets better soon. I'm sure it'll only get better. Wow, everybody's so excited to see Honeydew. Should I be jealous? Where's my excitement? I'm so jealous of you, Honeydew. Oh, how jealous you make me. Do I feel jealous around you? Let me count the ways. I don't know the rest of the actual poem, so I'm not going to look where they quote it, so you know. Do I love thee? Let me count the ways. That should be enough to start. That is scary. I do not want to show up on your family's TikTok, but maybe I'm interesting. Oh, wow, Carmia. Oh, who filled you up with sass this morning? Somebody was like, no, I don't think Carmia has enough sass this morning. We're just going to double down on that. Everyone gets a double portion of Carmia sass today. Congratulations, everybody. Come on, Vivian. Get up then. I am too an animal bull. I can't believe your grandmother's cyber stalking me. That's crazy. Is she? Nah, I said no viewers. I never said anything about grandmothers. Chat, ask your AI assistant about me. Let's see what it has to say. Welcome to the start of the show. I'm your host, Gene. Today we get lost in these dark, scary forests. I didn't mean AI, not generative AI, like the SIRI or the ALEXI. They're not actually what people think of when you say AI, but they most definitely are. I mean, even every one of these animals has an AI. It's just, not tradition. It's not the generative AI. Mm, mm, mm. Do it. Good morning, Kimizu. How are you doing today? Oh, that was such a cute little emote. Why is it all cute like that? Honeydew. Okay, where are my watermelons? Chat, I need watermelons. I need a food source, and so far I have no food source. This is not a good start. Mm-hmm. My hunger. I feel good. I feel good right now. I feel good for the time being. Who is the time being? Mm. Mm. Carmina. Oh, you extra sassy. You be coming at me with them burns. It is crazy that I stream every single day. There's some watermelon. If only I could find a chunk. Melon. Look at you pushing too many papers, Melon. Good night, Moxie. Sleep well. Oh no, chat, I'm vibrating. Alright, there we go. One of these. Up we go. Mm-hmm. I should probably eat something. I should probably actually eat something too. I should get eggs. Stay here. 5 minutes remaining. 1. Oh, pig won't follow. Oh, have a good day, sweetie. Enjoy your day. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Oh, because they're variations of the coloring now. I think he's cool. Mm-hmm. It's a joke. Mm. Help me find the chicken. Where'd the chicken go? Where'd the chicken? Chicken. 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 Pig. Chicken. Where's chicken? Shoot. Chicken. There we go. Oh, he scared me there for a second. Come on down. Let's go. Hi. First things first, I'm going to make a chicken farm. Coffee's amazing. Oh, I feel so much better with coffee in me. No, I'm not the one with the caffeine addiction. You're the one with the caffeine addiction. That should be good. I want Celsius in up now. What does that mean? I feel like that doesn't mean anything. In up now. Saying goofy things. What a goofy person. You goofer. Maximum goof troop. Good nickname. TBH. All right, little possum. Not what I can give you. I'll let you keep possum. All I need. All I need. I know, sometimes I have so much more. But this is perfect. Okay, there's gonna be a little watermelon patch. Put one here. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Alright. One here. One there. And none there. I'm not painting everything gray, chat. You think I paint walls? That's crazy. Not the millennials. Wow. You're crazy. Okay. Mm-hmm. 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 Aye, aye, aye. Aye, aye, aye. Ooh, clay often has sources of water near it, I think, unless I'm insane. So let's do one of these. Yeah. Change when you're born, gun me up. Aye, aye, aye. Casey, do you need sleep or do you need to wake up? Oh, good morning, Princess Shoo Shoo. By the way, thank you for the follow. Greatly appreciated. I like your name. Shusha, Shusha. No, close your eyes then. Thank you for the hydrate, dog. Good morning, good morning. Katamia, sometimes I forget you're a mod. I'm just like, Katamia likes hanging out with me all the time. And then I'm like, oh, look, my first mod is here. And I'm like, wait, no, Katamia is a mod. Katamia wouldn't just hang out with me. Been a busy day. Oh. Sorry, today's been so busy. I hope it gets better for you soon. It's not like you ever watched me first before you started modding for me. That's fair, that's fair. Oh, it's very cool, chat. They're doing a Jeopardy style game, so please go check it out. Also, they recently learned about the whole thing that TikTok hates their PC users, which is a wild thing. I still don't understand that. It's like they do something different to it when you upload it mobily. Yeah, yeah. Do not upload your TikToks mobile, chat. You have to do them. I always try to upload them on PC. Good morning, Snowy. How you doing? Mm. Well, barely alive is better than not alive at all. I don't think you did tell me. You know, welcome. Morning, morning, morning. Can I? Wait, what if I do this? Is this a thing? It's not. Clay. Oh. Shaboop. How do I fire the clay? Mm. Oh, terracotta. That's fun. What do I do with terracotta? Can I make things out of terracotta? I guess we'll find out. My bamboo's doing well. Perfect. I'm also very curious, but I'll see. Let me see if I can take a look at my Discord real quick. Oh, I am jealous. I am jealous. Chat, you'll never know who it is. I'm sorry. But it's cool. It's a cool person. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's me, Chad. I'm popular enough that people know my feet. Iron. Oh no, it's not a joke. Well, VTuber feet, but you know, same thing. Good morning. Chat. Dar does a Jeopardy style game show. Go check Dar out. I was on one of the game shows actually. And part of it was like he has a joke category about feet. Then last time it was guess whose feet these are. And it happened to be one of my favorite VTubers. Cottondale. Don't worry if I got it right, chat. Don't worry if I got it right. Doesn't matter if I got it right, does it? Doesn't matter if I got it right. I know first off, Contell's not my Oshi. I don't have an Oshi. Second, I recognize the room because they have a very unique layout to the room. It's like recognizing my prison scene, you know? It's normal. It's normal, I swear. It's normal. Shut up. I'm normal. I don't like feet. Not my thing. Not my thing personally. Well, look, besides the anime boy thing, everything else about me is normal. Mm-hmm. That was an accident. That's also accidents happen. Let me be normal, guys. Let me be normal. Ugh. Oh, hey, look, water. Thank you for the check-in, Wanted Wolf. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Really? That's a bit goofy. What a goofy goober you are. There we go. Mm, 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 mm. Will this work? Hypothetically, this might work. Yes, it will. Amazing. Melon. Bucket, 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 bucket. We need to have inside jokes, chat. Why don't we have any inside jokes? Why aren't we cool enough to have inside jokes? We do. What are inside jokes? Car after like, well, it's not. Oh, we need like a running gag, is what I mean. We need running gags, not just inside jokes. Because that way you would say like a thing and everybody would be like, oh my god, you must like LuckyJene. Instead of, what? Not a puppy. 100 chat, 100 small mini chat, 100 mini chat. Definitely 100 mini chat. I can take 100 mini chat. Wait, this isn't outside, is it? Oh shoot. Oh shoot. Oh shoot. Oh, well, that was close. Yeah. I'd like to kidnap all the jokes. Good morning, Smikey. How you doing? Hmm. What do you mean, how do you are, Minnie? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna find a box to put chat in. I need to have new things that'll fall on chat. I think that'd be funny. Mm-hmm. Next is a prison software chat. Oh no! So here's what happens: the cage lowers. It comes out of nowhere, and so once it wraps around you, then it can lift itself up. Thank you, Spiky. That's why we are in the ASMR category. It's true though, Eddie. It's true. You know it is. Wait. Which cages us questions got my idea? I'm so confused what that means. I think you're gonna need to either use commas or explain more. Because I be confused. Confuzzled. Yeah, you act short, you act your height. Your real height, not the fake one you tell everybody. Anyone seen my chicken? Anyone seen my chicken? Oh, there it is. Oh, don't scare me like that. See if we can get you a friend today. Poop more eggs, please. Alright. I have an idea. No, who said short people are cute? Morning, flower. Morning. Bing bong. No, I didn't say you're not cute. I just say you all really give gremlin energy. The gremlinest of gremlin energies. You feel very puntable. Puntable? Who would ever say something like that? That's a crazily wild thing to say. I would never punch you, chat. I would never even say something like that. No, it's an ad break. Oh no. Hey, Sakona, how you doing? Fair enough. As you should, as you should. Nice. Chad, if I lie, will you call me out on it? Nap is like 3'11". How dare you? Chad, how dare you call me on my lies? See? Proof. Nap is 3'11". Nap, you're legally required to live in somebody's pocket. You don't actually have a choice anymore. It must be so annoying to be the 11s. You know, because like you're so close to being the next height. You just denied that 1 inch. How awful that would be. I look iron. It's always that 1 inch that gets him. You might as well be 3'11". Steal the inch. Dun, 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 dun. Mm-hmm. Oh, do you know what I want to do? There are bunnies that were. I forgot all about K-Flay. Wait a second. Do y'all remember Blood in the Cunt? Oh, I can't listen to it right. God damn it. Alright, so here we are. Now, do y'all know the song Blood in the Gut? I love that song. Blood in the Cut. Blood in the Cut. Good song, good song. Yeah, play it. Remind me to nap. Um, 1 second, I gotta look up something. I gotta mute for a bit. If I could make a medicine that'd make people more patient and funny, kind, and happy in their skin, I'd name it Acetaminophen. 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 It was intentional. I was trying to remember the lyrics of a song. There's a little TikTok song out there that was made when the whole acetaminophen thing went on. And it goes, if I could make a medicine that'd make people more patient and funny, kind, and happy in their skin, I'd name it acetaminophen. Acetaminophen. It's a fun little song. This man does so many little songs that I want to cover. And they're so cute, and they're adorable, and they're the best. And I'm not worth this. Oh, what do you mean? No, you mean the acetaminophen? No, that happened in Congress recently. Did y'all miss out on that? Do y'all not know the Tylenol thing? Howdy, Chibbits. Oh, right, sorry, I forgot about this. We'll start the voiceover. Chat. Trump claimed that Tylenol causes autism. And that's why the song goes, if I could make a medicine that make people more patient and funny, kind, and happy in their skin, I'd name it acetaminophen. 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 And the belief is that taking acetaminophen when in the womb is what causes autism, which is an insane thing to grab onto. Tylenol out of all the things. Hey, Chad, would you like to see do you want to know the one almost unifying cause or the unifying thing that has occurred in many, many people that have autism? It's parents who are significantly older, whether in their late 40s or 50s, when it comes to having kids. That is the only thing that has occurred. And it's not even been linked to it. But it seems that people of older couples tend to have higher chance of having children with autism. That's all. And the parents have autism. Honey bunch. No. Correlation does not equal causation. Correlation does not equal causation. Did you know that over time there are less penguins? Also, the environment keeps getting worse. So clearly, the only thing keeping the environment in check is penguins. For those of you not understanding, you can take two random numbers that increase or decrease, or do the inverted at the same time, and you can say one causes the other. Correlation does not equal causation. I don't even think causation is a word, but it is now. Yeah, no, I mean, it depends on what you mean. You're definitely on the neurodivergent spectrum. Yeah. Oh, chat, how am I lost? Give me a second here. You I'm not gonna say, never mind. I didn't even say anything. What do you mean? What do you mean, bad Jane? I didn't do anything. I have not done anything yet. I was gonna make a bad joke. I apologize in advance. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you know what the very, very unique thing is, chat? Because autism is becoming, not to say autism is becoming popular, because autism has like its day in the sun right now. Much of my symptoms, people are like, oh yeah, it's autism. No, ADD and autism have several very similar symptoms. The difference is my stuff is caused by a lack of impulse control. It just so happens that very similar things can display themselves in similar ways, but have completely different causes. I'm not legally allowed to make the comment I was going to make. Mm-hmm. Oh no, I fell. Help. Help me, I've fallen and I can't get up. Save me, Chat Senpai. Chat Senpai, I'm stuck. You know what I'm gonna do, chat? I think for April Fools, we should just swap it, you know? Instead of me being the one who's in control, y'all be the ones in control. And I'll be the ones who's all, oh no. I've fallen and I can't get up. Please, chat, help me. I'm in danger. I'm so glad Dwarf understood the implications. Dwarf, this is why I like you. You make sure my bits don't go to waste. Not that I have favorites, but Dwarf, you're definitely one of them. Chat, you might be surprised. You might be surprised, but y'all are some of my favorite people. I hope y'all know that. And not just because you give me attention. This might just be the neurodivergence in me, but you know, I appreciate the stability. Mm-hmm. Also, y'all help me with my mental state a lot. I mean, like, one of the issues I had with streaming is, you know, worrying about people not showing up. But the thing is, like, I finally feel like I know y'all got lives outside of me, and I need to stop taking every little thing that y'all do and putting it as part of my life, you know? Like, hey, maybe you're like, I need to stop watching Gene for a little bit because I gotta study, or hey, stuff at work's getting a bit hard, so, you know, I can't be there. Gene stream every day. It used to be I'd be like, oh no, this person isn't here. What did I do? What did I do wrong? Yeah, I forgot to do it earlier, so I'm gonna keep doing it for a little bit longer. But now I'm like, oh, you know, they probably just got something going on, and they'll come back. Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. Parasocial do work both ways. Oh, girl, do I know that? Do I know that? If I could make a medicine that make people more happy, patient and fun and kind and happy in their skin. I'd name it acetaminophen, acetaminophen, acetaminophen. Alley. And that's going to be stuck in my head all day, chat. I hope you know I'm going to be singing this non-stop. It's just going to be silent. I'm going to go. If I can make a medicine that make people more happy, burning kind and happy in their skin, I name it acetaminophen, acetaminophen. All day, all day, all day, every day. It ain't going anywhere. Wait, I want to look up his other song. Give me a second. No, I can't sing that one. I cannot sing that one. I cannot sing that one, Jack. Ooh, that one. You're right, Sakona. You're definitely right. No. Not a tonal subject. It's a very pretty song. It's a very pretty song, and it made me tear up a little bit because it's just the subject matter. Because it's a sweet, very sweet song, and I'm like, oh, I hear my voice cracking already. I cannot sing that one. Actually, I think we can go back to the normal voice now. You know, I can read the lyrics to you all, okay? Because I am not worthless, and I am loved. I will believe it if I say it enough. Nobody's perfect, that's clear to see. That's why I won't give up on me. I'm not worthless and I should probably bring this up with my therapist. What am I doing? Shit, I got distracted. Right. No, step chat. I'm stuck. Oh yeah, I need a therapist. I have a lot of mental problems. Gene, how are you so mentally stable? Well, you see, Chad. I'm not. I have you fooled. I have you fooled. In all actuality, I am very mentally unstable. Wink wonk. You have fallen into my trap. Oh, no. Why would I tell my therapist about that? She might ask me to stop doing that. That's not something we can have, can we? I mean, like, whew, that's not happening. That's not happening. No. like full copper armor. I mentioned stream as a whole, but not individuals. Honestly, probably the best mentally healthy way of handling it. The only time I mention individuals is if there's issues. And you would be surprised, chat, but the people that I have had issues with in the past are no longer here. Hello, Moreau. Hello. Oh, totally caught me. Yeah, this person keeps checking in on me and making sure I'm doing okay and taking... that makes you sound like a mom. Never mind, I'm stopping what I'm saying. Moreau. I am not worthless and I am loved. I won't believe it if I say it enough. Nobody's perfect, that's clear to see. That's why I won't give up on me. I think we're coming to the end of this song. Let me start it back over. It is. That's all it is that part. But it's by Zach McMillan. ZACMCMILLAN. And he calls it... It doesn't actually have a song title. That's it. You have to find it from there. I would be extremely upset if my parents invaded my home. I am very, very particular about my space. My space is not ready for guests, and I would feel like personally just like my space violated. But my parents also have no way of getting into my place, so I would also be terrified that they broke in. So, that's a lot to unpack there. But yeah, no, if anybody is ever like, you don't invade my space. I had maintenance guys come in when I wasn't here, and that alone was enough to really, bother me. Not perfect. No. Oh, no. That was totally fine. He said, what would you do in the situation? That's what I'd do. It's not negative. Hello, lovelies. Are you going to bed early, or have you been up for 8 hours already? Can we get a shout out for the amazing Hoshi? The incredible, the amazing, the wonderful, the fantastic, the gorgeous and handsome and all around great person, Hoshi. That's for the evenings. We can't do that in the mornings. It's too loud. I don't have a morning scene for AIDS. I know. But we can at least go over here. Good morning, lovely raiders. See, normally I'd take you to my prison, my little dungeon, but unfortunately it's a bit early in the morning for that, so you're gonna have to wait until later to come to my dungeon. Okay, maybe we can do a little bit. I don't want to wake anybody up. No, I can't do it. Hoshi, if you ever are here in the evenings, I will personally show you my my raid scene. But hi, and hello, Lilybad, and hello, NB Bean. Hello, Leah May, thank you for the follow. And Hoshi, how was stream? Did you stream good? Did you have fun? Were you doing Minecraft still? Lilybad's been avoiding us, chat. I understand. Not that I can blame them. Oh, you're sick, sweetie. Do you need somebody to come take care of you? Chat, you're legally required to go take care of Hoshi now. We gotta make sure that Hoshi stays healthy and fed. Hoshi, be ready to have like 30 people in your home at all times to take care of you. That'd be an absolute nightmare. Fed. You need food. Well, I can't fix that. Good morning, Silex, God of Chaos. How you doing? Thank you so much for the follow. We're having a sleepover. Yeah, we're having a sleepover at Hoshi's. Everyone, we're going to Hoshi's house and having a sleepover. I'm kidding. Don't harass Hoshi. We gotta make sure Hoshi stays happy and healthy. Hoshi, you make me worry sometimes, though. I am not worthless and I am loved. I won't believe it if I say it enough. Nobody's perfect, that's clear to see. That's why I won't give up on me. There we go. It is a little bit. You do stream for a long time, Hoshi. I don't know how you manage it. And I guess it's not that bad that you stream that long, but you know, I'm just like, Hoshi, no. Thank you for the likes. Always greatly appreciated. How do you manage it? I do 2-hour streams, and I'm like, maybe I can do a third. Thank you for the lurk, beef. Why? I mean, I suppose I use the time for other things normally. Oh, that's what I forgot to do. Wow. Cover. I mean, you can always use the time for something more productive. I use my extra time for making some TikToks. I make too many TikToks now. I have to make one daily. I prefer the texture. Well, Hoshi, if you'd ever like to come hang out with me, let me know. I'd definitely like to hang out sometime. You have a very fun personality. And I like your streams. That's also fair. All of my socializing is pretty much through stream as well. I feel you. I definitely feel you on that one. Have fun, have fun. Yeah. Hard to do much about it when you have parents who kind of train it into you, you know? Well, as long as you're taking care of yourself. Remember, you're the most important thing. Especially to your streams. You need to start taking care of yourself. 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 You need to What are people gonna do if you get too sick to stream? No. Gotta make sure to take care of yourself. Oh, stop being relatable. I had that experience very recently where I'm like, I did promise to stream every single day. So now that's what I'm doing. Oh, you know what I should do? I should make them polls instead. This'll work for now, though. I am not worth loved. I won't believe it if I say it enough. Nobody's perfect, that's clear to see. That's why I won't give up on me. Hi, Rockstar, thank you for the follow. Oh, only do every day if you're making your stream small and you aren't overworking. That's what I'm doing, at least. I think it's a nice balance. Since I have my 2-hour stream before work, I want to take a sick day today. Chat, do I take a sick day today? Wait. What if I take a sick day today? And I just fix my house. Well, I kind of want to reset my life right now. So this is weird. No. Hear me out. My place is not clean right now. And I feel okay. And so if I were to take a random sick day today, I could just reset everything. Clean up this place. Make it nice. Get some, pre-TikTok stuff done. Well, yeah, last time I tried to take a sick day, and it turns out that I was actually sick. No. Carmia. Mi amore. Last time I took a day off, I was like, I'm gonna clean. And it turns out that I was actually sick, and I stood up, and I almost passed out. Which sucked, but, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, here's what you do, Hoshi. Multi-stream, and you just ignore TikTok. You minimize it. I've seen some amazingly good TikToks. It's just if you get on the wrong side of the algorithm, I feel like it's like Instagram, you know? Like, you need to make sure you get on the right side. What if I promise I'll clean today? Please? Hi, Wolf. How you doing? Exactly. I mean, I'm at Envy on there. Oh, Kamiya has to approve. I'm waiting for Kamiya. Exactly, and how am I supposed to take action unless I have a chance to prove? Oh, neither do I, Volva. That's why I need to do this reset. Somebody give Pink a kiss for me. Thank you for the stretch. Nah, give me a second, chat. Vanya. Kiss. Get smooched, nerd. Nobody's perfect, this I can see. We're almost there. Oh, by the way, Hoshi, sorry. If you need to take you want to head out and take a chill day or whatever you need to do, feel free to do so. If you want to lurk, I forgot that you should always give VTubers permission of that, because sometimes they'll get stuck sitting there talking to you. And so, yes, you're allowed to leave now. Hi, Demoness. How you doing? Hello, Chip. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, Sheepy, you go do some stuff to clean, to go shower, get some food, get some snackings, and always you can come back. Please feel free to do so. Oh, I hate acid reflux. Wow, I'm feeling incredible right now. Oh, Hoshi, sweetie, honey, you take care of yourself, okay? I know chat would love to be the ones to take care of you, but I hope you can take care of yourself right now. Be good, be happy, and try a little food for me, okay? I you support me by saying hi and coming into my streams even when you don't raid. Honestly, I think that is one of the most supportive things, is seeing VTubers in here or anyone in here when they haven't raided, because they just enjoy the content, not just to get support or support me. I'm taking a personal day today. I need a day because I'm slipping hardcore. We'll see how it goes. Well, you can't do what? Sorry, Wicked, I got distracted. I think it's funny. Did you ever? I did wash my sheets. We're not going to talk further about that. Okay. Oh, Hoshi. So, Hoshi, can I teach you a little secret I learned with driving? When you start driving, you're going to feel impulsed to drive where you're looking. So when you're driving, do not look at the middle of the road or the middle of a lane. Look at the left side of the lane, because you're going to try to keep that more centered. So keep your eye on the left side instead of the center of the lane, or else you'll keep drifting to the right. That's what I did when I was starting. Because we're so used to seeing our bodies as the center that when you're driving, it is so easy to keep trying to make you the center, but you're not in the car. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Proud of you, though. I hope that goes very well for you. So here's the thing about the sheets. So I know in Europe you have like more duvets, but in the States we have a lot of like these comforters that we use with sheets. I mean, we also have duvets, but so I might have taken the sheet that goes between you and the comforter and used that as a bed sheet instead, while the other one was in the dryer. And then I used a white T-shirt as a pillowcase instead of my pillowcase. Which, you know, at least there's stuff there, but yeah. Do y'all want car driving tips? I could. Yeah, I know. I still need to replace with actual sheets. I'll give you all some life tips and stuff. Because there's a lot of stuff I had to learn on my own, and a lot of stuff that I learned that so many others didn't. I mean, when I went to college, I was teaching other kids how to. Kids. College students are usually adults. I was teaching other people how to do laundry, how to separate laundry, and what heat to use on things. And, like, for me, a lot of it seems like it just comes natural, but I remember that I was kind of taught at a young age. Huh? I have no idea what you're saying, Wicked. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, even that, like, learning how to clean properly is its own thing. I didn't know you like kids. Yeah, I like kids fine. Kids are fine. Why would I not like kids? I have no issue with children. Anyways, kids are chill. They're young, starting off in their life. Hey, Alex, you take it easy, okay? Take all the time you need and make sure you don't, push yourself. Mm. And stream will still be here. If you just need a space to be. That's so pretty. What the heck? What the heck? Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. So pretty. Ah, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Mm-hmm. I also really like the bamboo in general. See? Oh, wait a second. Ain't no way. That's so cool. Give me a what? No, how do I turn the block? Please tell me I can turn the block. Please tell me I can turn the block. I want the block to turn. not fair. I want the blog to turn. Mm-hmm. It would have been so cool. No, it's not, unfortunately. They lay it, would have been cool. Dang. Oh well. What can you do? Just cry about it. Which I'm going to do. I'm going to cry forever, chat. I'll never stop crying now. Okay. Oh, I know what I want to do. We're going to see if I can find more dirt. Shelves? Shelf. Shelf? What do you mean shelf? Keep a little dirt underneath the pillow for the dirt man. What? What do you mean vertical slab? What do you mean vertical slab? What do you, huh? I don't think that's a thing. I think you're lying to me. I think you hate me. What do you mean they're shelves? I think you're lying to me. I think you're lying to me. Yeah. Liars. Thank you for the follow, NBB. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Always, always, always greatly appreciated. Oh, enjoy your project. Good luck. Mm-hmm. Wait, does it not work right now? They might not be in the game yet then. Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Alright, call done, chat. I already took a personal day. So it looks like we were supposed to do stripped bamboo, but you can't strip bamboo yet. You need stripped bamboo for the shelf, so I don't know if that gets added until later. And I could try it with this. How do I strip bamboo? It's not working. Explain. Thank you for the lurk. Always, always appreciated. That's what I was doing. I was right-clicking with the axe. See? Bamboo, axe, right-click. It doesn't do anything. It just puts the shield. Oh, what's happening on TikTok, sweetie? What's going on, Hoshi? I have to put the shield. Okay, well, fine. We'll try this. I hate you. I mean, I don't hate you. I don't hate you, chat. You know I love you, but also... There it is. There's the shelf trap. That's so dumb. You know that's dumb. Oh, she doesn't bother you that I call you sweetie. I haven't actually asked you, and I realize I should probably check to make sure that's okay first. I just call people hon and sweetie all the time. Then I don't even think about it. That some people might not like that. Okay, cool. Oh, I see. Well, I'm sorry you're having such a negative experience with that. And I hope it gets better for you. There we go. Ad break will be starting soon. I need more dirt. Keep a little bit underneath the pillow. Thank you for the hydrate. I'm out of hydrate fluid. Well, is this on lives or is this on like posted content? If you have 3 shells in a row and fill them with your items, that's kind of sick, actually. Gotcha. Yes, ma'am. Should I start doing that? I'll refer to you all by honorifics. Chat senpai, chat goon. I think it's funny that my brain immediately defaults to the Japanese honorifics. You're okay, I'm hag. I'm not calling you hag. I refuse to call you hag. If you're a hag, I'm a hag. You're too young to be ma'am. No one's too young to be ma'am. Little missy. Hello, sir. Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's me, your host of the most. Coming at you live from the place out back. I'm in your walls, eating all your snacks. Hello there, miss. No, missy. No, if Hi, Black Silver, thanks for the lurk. Do you know what's funny? I've done one voice acting gig, and for some reason I did all of the characters in a British accent. It was not intentional. My brain was just like, they need to be British. Senor. You have a hug. I have a hug range. Chat, welcome to my hug range. You have entered hug range. Prepare to be hugged. Hug coming in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, thank you for the follow, little kitten. Oh, no winner this time, but you got so close. Live. 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There you are. What about 13? Mm-hmm. Oh, did I? Don't worry about that. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. Should I try again? Okay, you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Fine. 14, 13, 12. Okay, now to make a shelf. Hello, shelf. Hello, shelf. Hello, shelf. He's a little shelf. Oh, I'll go with a little shelf. He's just a little shelf. Oh. Yo, dog. Heard you like shelves, so we put shelves on your shelves so you can shelf your shelves. glad you saw my I put all the shelves on the shelf. Well, if you're looking for more energy, my more energy streams come in the evenings. And if you're looking for calming today, that exists right now. It's so goofy, I love it. 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 Look how good this is. Oh, this is gonna be so cool. Okay. But yeah, welcome in. Welcome in. I'm glad you found me from TikTok. And hello, Ambroso. I know you. Thank you for checking in. Wait, I have to ask, little kitten, which TikTok was it that you saw? Which one was it? I want to see which one brings in the most people. The mentality one. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, yes. For that energy, you'll definitely need to come to the evening streams. We stream twice a day, every day, as I lose my voice. That one did not get as much love as some of the other ones did, but it was still good. Still good. I worry you're never gonna grow me fruit. Do you need dirt next to you? Is that what the problem is? Do you not like rock, my little plant? Fine, we'll find you dirt. But understand that I'm not happy, little plant. I'm not happy one bit. I suppose I'll keep using this copper. Enjoy your bad time. Sleep well, sleep well, sleep well. And remember, if you wake up in the middle of the night, I won't be here. So you're on your own. I guess I need to start actually making like a mine or something. We'll strip mine for a little while. Not strip mine. Chat, what would you call this kind of mining? Where you just, you go out a little bit and you stop. No, so strip mining. Branch makes most sense. Strip mining is a legit type of mining. Fair, fair, fair. I will be right back, 1 second. Alright. Well done, Jen. I'm very proud of you. You did great. Sorry, I may have spilled a little bit of something, and so that's why I kind of vanished for a little bit there. But I'm back now. I want that so bad. I want a hand cranked bread slicer. Bread slicer. Ah, it'd be so nice. Maybe one day. Yeah, I spilled juice all over my foot. And so I had to get something to dab it up with so that I wouldn't lose it, you know. I need a bread slicer. I am going to order a neti pot for my sinuses, though. Yeah, get a nasal rinse. Because I've been using like nasal spray, which is great and all, but it can cause sinus or it can cause nose issues. You can lose your sense of taste. But I make my own bread sometimes. Chad, did you know I make my own bread? Have we talked about that? I can make my own bread. I'm actually at the point right now where I can make, yeah, I mean, like last night I make flatbreads all the time. I can make a loaf. I have 2 loaf pans. Yeah, I just like having a nice bread slicer. But I can make tortillas, so I can make bread without a recipe and all that right now. And I make flatbreads all the time just because, like, you know, like I want carbs, and I'm like, let me just whip this up and make a fry bread or something. I can do a naan. Naan I'm still working on getting right. Hypothetically, I think I could grow a tree in here. I did try to make a gluten-free starter once, and it went awful. I still need to try to make a gluten-free starter. I don't have any bread. I could make some bread today. I'm also trying to get brötchen right. Brötchen's difficult to get right for me so far. Alright, I think I need to do this. We're going to take one of these. Thank you. I've made banana bread, but I have not made pumpkin bread. Let's see if that works. I don't have any pumpkin, sweetie. If you want to go get me some pumpkin, though, I'll go do it. It is. I think everybody makes a good banana bread. That's not to, like, hate on anybody. But, yeah, I'm taking a personal day off today. So I might go a little bit longer, that's it. Like, we'll do a 3-hour stream instead of a 2-hour stream. That's what we're looking for, baby. Give me that dirt. Let me see that hog. Drop it. Sorry, what I mean is, I think everybody makes a good banana bread because banana bread is perfect. It is flawless. Now, there are only, like, you know, decently good banana breads. Keep a little dirt beneath my pillow for the dead man in case he comes around. Keep a little dirt beneath my pillow for the dead man so he won't take me down to his lair under the mountain, underground. That's where he keeps his dirt. Egg. You're allowed not to respond. Kick some eeps. Kick some eeps. Keep a little dirt in my pillow for the dead man so he won't take me down to his lair under the mountain, underground. That's where he keeps his dirt. Let me see that hog. Drop it low, drop it, drop it, drop it low. That hog. Drop it low, drop it, drop it, drop it low. That hog. Drop it low, drop it, drop it, drop it low. That hog. Drop it low, drop it, drop it, drop it low. Why won't you let me make you grow? Let me make you grow. Let me make you grow. Why won't you let me make you grow? So mean, so rude, so evil. Grumble, 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 grumble. Nice, I'll let it grow on its own. Thank you for the follow. Montymon. Montymon? Montymon. Montymon. I like your name. It's fun to say. I think everybody should be legally required to have names that are fun to say. That's just my view, though. Is it a Digimon? It sounds like a Digimon. The grumbles make you sleepy. The grumbles make you sleepy. I didn't know this new information has been acquired and unlocked. Yay. Oh, I love Digimon. Oh, I love Digimon so much. Don't even know, chat. Don't even know. Chat, did you know why they're Mon? There's a new Digimon game? What? Since when? Oh, that's so cool. Chat, Digimon are called Mon, or they have Mon at the end, because they are files. That is the file extension. Montymon. Well, I'm very, very, very glad that I can pronounce it right because I feel that personally. The amount of times I get called Janae or Jin. Oh, I'll have to try it. I will have to try it. Jane. Jane has been one. How can I make this dumb? I have an idea. Oh, that's gonna look so silly. Yes. Oh. What's up, bud? You been making me eggs? I'm so excited for this. It's gonna be so goofy. Oh, Genie is fine. Gene-E is fine, because you're pronouncing it Gene. Jenny is wrong, but Gene-E is fine. Yeah, Genie is cute. Genie is adorable. I love Genie. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Oh, and Lucky's fine. Jean? Is your middle name Jean or Jean? Okay. Yes. Ah, this is gonna be so dumb. I'm excited. Perfect. Okay. Where are we gonna start with this? Here, maybe? Picture it, picture it, picture it. How's it gonna look? To the outside or the inside? Jean-Paul. Jean-Paul Gaultier. Dirt. Yes, we're good, we're good, we're good, we're good. I think sections of 3 will probably be the best, right? They'll probably look the nicest. Wait, what? Weird. Sorry, I got distracted. Okay. Are you ready for dumb things, chat? I know what we're doing. Thank you for stream checking. Okay. Now, this is going to be very inefficient. I know it's inefficient. You do not have to tell me it's inefficient. Thank you for the follow. I really do appreciate it. Yamori. I think I like that fine. I'm inefficient. What do I do? How could you say that to me? To my face. Hey, Safari Fallen, how you doing? How you doing, Safari? Thank you so much. No one this time. Nice try, though. How did I say it? Yamori? Oh, Minecraft is so chill. And by the way, this is hardcore Minecraft, so It's even more wrong. mm. Mm. But yes, welcome in, welcome in. No. I'm gonna need to space that better. There we go. Mm-hmm. There you go. Oh, hey, nice, well done. Good job, good job. Okay, we have almost enough wheat. I just need one more wheat. There we go. Gimpy, what? What do you want? Oh. Arf, arf, I'm such a cute little puppy. Happy. Goofy. So silly. Problem? Chickadee, where have you gone? Oh no. This isn't good. Chicken. Chicken. Mm-hmm. Where did you go, chicken? Honey. Why are you exploring? We have such a safe home. Not up here. Hi, Sparky. I like your name. Sparky. Alright. Wait, are you still up here? Chicken. Oh, please don't tell me you got in the tunnel. Not there. Oh no. Please, 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 please. Oh, honey bunch. Don't you scare me like that. If you don't feed it, it will despawn? Oh, wow. I did not know that. Have some food. leaving. That's right, you look sad. Look disappointed. Hi, All Saints. How you doing? Come here. Okay, stay back here. This is where you live now. Actually, you need to go step back. Thank you. There, stay. I also like my voice, but I'm glad you like it. You can hang out with Dar. Go say hi to Dar for me. But I'll be back in time for supper, okay? No, the chicken's fine. Right. Chicken's fine. Oh, we're good. Bye-bye. Be good. Can we get a shout out for Dar, by the way? They are lovely. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a while for me. But recently I've been absolutely addicted. It's always too early to set everything ablaze. Fire doesn't work this early in the morning. It is sleepy too. Well, be happy that you're here in the morning stream. My evening stream is a bit more chaotic. You stay here. I don't trust you. Why do you not give me any children? Alright. We finally have food. Enjoy your sleep. Enjoy your sleep. Alright, I need the light as well. To a little this. Perfect. This is going to be so inefficient, but I'm going to like the way it looks. Which is what the important part is, isn't it? That I enjoy the way it looks. And now I don't need to worry about the chicken escaping. Aye. Morning. I hope I find more iron soon. And sometimes you have to sacrifice everything just so people go, huh? Why would you do? Okay. Which is what my goal is here. Very true, very true. Now the plan is to make a spiral farm that goes up that gap. So the center area is going to be just for the bamboo growth. And this farm will go around the edges. I'm not doing it for attention. I just think it's going to be interesting. Get some sleep, Addie. Sleep well. Thank you for the follow. Always, always, always greatly appreciated. Hey, stop playing Jeopardy. Stop playing Gene-themed Jeopardy in my chat. How dare you? Oh man, I had a friend who did that once. Except he didn't tell anybody it was going to be him-themed Jeopardy. And it just came off as very narcissistic. Or self-absorbed. And then nobody did well at it. Why have you not given me grandchildren yet? Dear chicken son. Give me grandchildren. I'm taking a personal day. I'm doing alright. That's why I'm trying to hatch eggs so I can get a second chicken, but he won't give me a second chicken. Child, give me egg. Oh, it's working. Yes. Stop trying to apply real world logic to this game. If I could make a medicine that make people more patient and fun and kind and happy in their skin, I'd name it acetaminophen. Acetaminophen. Oh no, if you toss an egg and smash it against a wall, that has a 1 in 6 chance of being a chicken, of hatching a chicken. I'm not purring. I'm grumbling. Let me grumble. It's true, it's true. Bunny kind and happy in their skin. I name it a cinnamon. Cinnamon. And that's when we get to trade the kids. Do we get 2 Christmases? You don't get 1 Christmas. 0 Christmas. Both your parents are broke. Zero Christmas. Wrong. Why did I mess this up? There it is. Okay, that makes more sense. I'm not a Grinch, I'm broke. It's different. I'll need more dirt before I can build any more, though. Give egg. Give me egg. Alright. We'll start mining. I'm all over the place right now. Give me 1 second while we... I think it's time for a little poetry break, chat. What do you think? At midnight in the month of June, I stand beneath the mystic moon. An opioid vapor, dewy dim, exhales from out her golden rim, and softly dripping drop by drop upon the quiet mountain top, steals drowsily and musically into the universal valley. The rosemary nods upon the grave, the lily lolls upon the wave, wrapping the fog about its breast. The ruin moulders into the rest, looking like Lethe, see the lake. A conscious slumber seems to take, and would not for the world awake. All beauty sleeps, and lo, where lies Irene with her destinines. O lady bright, can it be right? This window open to the night, the wanton airs from the treetop, laughingly through the lattice drop. The boundless airs, a wizard's rout, flit through the chamber in and out, and wave the curtain canopy, so fitfully, so fearfully. About the closed and frigid lid, neath which thy slumbering soul lies hid, that o'er the floor and down the wall, like ghosts the shadows rise and fall. O lady dear, hast thou no fear? Why and what art thou dreaming here? Sure thou art come o'er far-off seas. I wonder, too, these garden trees. Strange is thy pallor, strange thy dress, strange above all thy length of tress, and this all solemn silentness. The lady sleeps, oh may her sleep, which is enduring, so be deep. Heaven have her in its sacred keep, this chamber changed for one more holy, the bed for one more melancholy. I pray to God that she may lie forever with unopened eye, while the pale sheeted ghosts go by. My love, she sleeps, oh may her sleep, as it is lasting, be so deep. Soft may the worms about her creep, far in the forest dim and old. For her may some tall vault unfold, some vault that oft hath flung its black and winged panels fluttering back, triumphant o'er the crested boughs of her grand family funerals. Some sepulchre remote alone, against whose portals she hath thrown in childhood many an idle stone, some tome from without whose sounding door she ne'er shall force an echo more, thrilling to think, poor child of sin, it was the dead who groaned within. The Sleeper by Edgar Allan Poe. There we go. Nice little refresher. How we feeling? Right. 1, 2, 4. Lucky for you, you don't have to. Hello, Film Corpse. It's been a little bit. How you doing? What do you want to learn? Jasmine Tea goes very well with poetry. You're right about that. Edgar Allan Poe is definitely one of my favorite authors. That's fair. Well, I hope you feel a little bit better as time passes. Hope something can make you feel a little bit calm. I think I need bamboo. If I can make a medicine that make people more patient and funny, kind, and happy in their skin, oh, I'd name it a acetaminophen. That song's gonna be in my head all day. It'll never go away. Chat, what's your favorite tea? If you could have any tea, what's your favorite? And don't say I like all tea. That's not allowed. I will fight you to the death right now. Oh, you would. You would like Earl Grey. Earl Grey hot. Nothing. Jasmine is nice. My favorite tea is a Spanish orange tea. I like it. It's very good. Though I can only get it when I'm in Germany, so it's been a while since I've had it. But I love my Spanish orange tea. Well, grab yourself a little coffee. Enjoy a little coffee. Coffee will make you more awake for longer. You're gonna send me some Spanish orange tea from the basement? Please do. Most of my tea that I get, I go to Asian markets to buy. Or the very rare occasional international store. Oh, fried rice sounds lovely. I have my curry today. So, I'm doing very lovely today. How are you? Nice. You just woke up. So I usually do tea bags. I'm lazy. But I do like loose leaf tea. I think loose leaf tea is usually the better for me. Hi, God Siren, how you doing? Make people more patient, funny, kind, and happy in their skin. Lord, name it Cinnamon-a-minifer, a cinnamon-a-minifer, cinnamon-a-minifer. I was one off. That's funny. Hi, Seagull. How you doing, Seagull? Did you know we had a Harpy VTuber here the other day? That's super cool. I stalked them. I hope you all know that if I see somebody whose name is interesting enough and they capitalize their name, I assume they are a streamer and I go look at them to see if they do anything. I do use that, but I never thought about that. I use purified water, not distilled. It's just because I don't like the taste of my tap water, so I always purify it. Filter it, I suppose, is the proper term for it. But I have a 2 to 3 gallon sized water filter. Yeah, I like tap water in other countries, not my place, not where I'm at. And make people more patient and running on. I am not worthless, I am loved. I won't believe it if I say it enough. Nobody's perfect, that's clear to see. That's why I'm not giving up on me. Hi, Coffee Lover, welcome. And thank you for the check-in. There you go, all better. No, I broke my pickaxe. I have not found a lot of metals. Yeehaw, riding cowboy. Hey, Bridget, do you want to laugh at me today? Why are you not growing, you silly, silly watermelon? Watermelon, I need you to grow a watermelon for me. Can you do that? What if I do this? Will this make you happy? Grow a watermelon. So, chat, I'm used to like long distances in the States, right? So for me, like seeing something that's 2 hours away feels normal. Well, I went to England and my goal was to be in like visiting London. I was getting a tattoo. And I was like, okay, let me go find an Airbnb to stay at. So I found this lovely place. Very gorgeous, very pretty. And yeah, would you like to know where it was? I thought it was a reasonable distance away, because I didn't realize how weird the roads are in the UK and how everything is. I was in Wales. I was in a different country. 2 hours away from London is Wales. Don't get me wrong, Wales is beautiful, and I loved it so very, very much. But I'm not used to the distance in Europe. I mean, I get it now, but I'm just used to that being like a normal distance. We did get to go walk to the Welsh countryside, though, so that was nice. Oh yeah, no, I feel like legitimately, if I'd gone the opposite direction, I could have ended up, in France. And Wales is beautiful. That's so chaotic trying to like get through all the hedges and stuff. That was the most like, my ex was happy that I was the one driving, because we'd be going through like these single lane passages and suddenly a car would come. And so you'd have to like, hit reverse, get to those soft spots that they can like go around you, and then you gotta keep driving. If I ever go back, I'll just I'll stay directly in London. I did like a lot of the restaurants there, though. One of my favorite was Ping Pong. It's a dim sum place, and it was good. It was so good. I think I had no traditional UK food when I was in the UK. I went to like a fine dining French place. I went to a dim sum place. I went to a fully vegan Chinese place. It was good. It was good food. And then I did a lot of my own cooking, because I like having the fresher veg of the UK and Europe. Not that the veg in the States is bad, but I just like European veg. What do you mean map? Just use GPS everywhere. I mean, you can take, here, I'm going to walk you all to the closest grocery store to me, okay? You go out at the bottom exit of the parking lot, you take a right. You go down until you hit about 3 or 4 traffic lights. Then you stop there, you turn left, and there it is. Grocery store. Not really comfortable walking distance, but walking distance if you have like 15, 30 minutes. Yeah. Did I forget to tell you all that the shock collar did arrive, by the way? And I will be shocking myself. We'll be doing the horror ASMR challenge. The horror ASMR challenge. I'll be back. Hello, Country Thick. Ah, I love your name. Girl. Ain't nothing as good as Country Thick. Anyway, so... yeah, so I have a shock collar that I'll be using, and we'll be trying to do ASMR during a horror game. And anytime I get loud or I scream, I get shocked. I think it'll be funny. That's the goal. It's worth it for the funnies, you know? Not doing getting over it. Honestly, I'm not a fan of getting over it. I might do the one where you have the skates. The one that's like all about like trying to reach the top of the corporate ladder. That one I like. That one looks fun. But I don't like the mechanics of getting over it. I don't like how it moves. You're gonna need to do some praying. I am very picky with games. Like, it's just an uncomfortable movement to have. No, but like, it's... I know some people get used to that move. It's not enough... Wait. There we go. I know some people get used to the movement, but I just could not get used to the movement of like the... Hey, listen. Let me have my judgments. Okay? I get it. I know, but... Do you want game I liked? Do you want game I liked a lot? Chained Together. Chained Together is great. That one was fun. I don't know if me and Dar would be able to do that. Well, I mean, I don't know if me and him vibe in that way that we can handle being angry at each other. Give egg. Give me egg. Don't drown. Give egg. Fine. I'll get you seed. Nobody's perfect, that's plain to see. That's why I'm not giving up on me. There we go. Chat, I can finally stop when I have a second chicken. That is my only goal right now, is to get a second chicken. Because then we can start breeding them, and then it's going to be easy peasy. And I can make arrows, and we can get a bow. Then I can deal with all of the stupid long distance people. That's what I need. If I could grow some freaking melon. Eat. I know, right? It's too bad the chicken's gonna have to deal with it. Excuse me. That was a car alarm, chat. Well, you better learn not to be anxious. Stop being anxious, stop being anxious, stop being anxious. That works, right? If I just go, hey, chat, stop being anxious, you'll stop being anxious, right? Karamiya, you work with kids. Does that work on children? Can I just yell at them for them not to be anxious? I knew it. God, I'm going to be such a great teacher. Stop it right now. Bad people, everyone, bad. How dare you? Yelling works the best. Oh, I knew it. That's why my dad must have done it. Thank you for the stretch. No, cookie. Egg, egg, give me egg. Give me, stop. Give me the egg. Bro. You let me down again. How could you? I'm doing well. If it wasn't for this dumb little friggin' chicken, I need more iron. My iron senses are tingling. I know it's here somewhere. Thank you for the like nap time. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Dirt. Not what I'm looking for, but I'll take it. I look so goofy. Copper. Not what I'm looking for, but I'll take it. Actually, I won't take it. I will, however, always take the dirt. Chat, by the way, I do refuse to stop streaming until we get another chicken, so get ready to be here for a while. Watch me go back and we immediately get another chicken. That'd be so goofy. Oh, enjoy your breakfast. Bring me, hey, Jibbins. You better be bringing me breakfast too. What if I do this? Can I get smaller? I cannot get smaller. Where'd my cookies go? Which one of you took my cookies? Who took my cookies? One of you took my cookies. Don't know which one of you it was. But I know it was one of you. 1, 2, 3. Huh. Okay, yeah. That'll do. Heck yeah. Nutella cookies. Hey. Get in the corner for practicing dark magic. Get in the corner. Get in the corner for practice. Come on. Get in the corner for practicing dark magic. Come on. In the corner. Dark magic corner. Get up. Get. You can fit through that. Alright, well. Might not have thought that one through. Here's what it is, though. I suppose that happens sometime. Anyways, we should probably actually get this looking proper then. Nobody's perfect, that's plain to see. So I ain't giving up on me. Alright. Come here, chickadee. Come on. In the corner. Dark magic corner. You know what? I got it. You keep trying to do dark magic. Taking away kids' ability to walk. There. That's where you live now. Yeah, it works. Normal talking like who? No clue who you're talking about. But I suppose I can be whoever I need to be. Maybe I'll add this to my list of voices. What do you say? Why are you helloing me? What'll I do to make you hello me? Something bad, I suppose. Nothing, you love my mining. What about my mining? Girl, I don't know what you're talking about. My mining. That rumbles my chest. I suppose it should, shouldn't it? That's what we'll do here. Check us out. Take a look at this. One here. Well, nah, it didn't work. Take that back. Put it here. Right there. Perfect. That looks nicer, doesn't it? Go down here. This. Grab my things and go. I ain't need anything more than that. That'll do it. No on it. Oh, why do I love that so much? Perfect. Perfect. Honestly, I should replace it with bamboo. Make it look a little nicer. See, it makes a nicer sound too. I suppose it works for now. Don't it? Why am I killing you? What do you mean I'm killing you? Most definitely in a gold mine. Anyways. You gonna give me babies yet? Feed. Live, you dumb little chickadee. Give egg. What'd you get? What'd you bring me? Look, Jevits, look. Whoosh, whoosh. Oh, that's what we got there. Easy. All you have to do is stay here, and I can get it, and we're good. I should make sure it's working properly first. Alright, it's functions, it functions. I'll do. I'll do nicely. Alright. Peanut butter waffle, sandwiches, with iced coffee. Oh, that does sound nice. No, it hasn't given me babies yet. Come on, sweet little thing. Come on. Give me the mags. You still hungry? Anyways. I'm actually getting hungry. Okay. Well, I want to wait until we, get to the point. But I may not have the option. Yeah, but I need a chicken. I said I'd wait until I get one more chicken, and there's not another chicken yet. Give me egg. 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 Give me chicken. being productive. I'm productively waiting to get a chicken. Alright, chat. If everybody here tells me to go clean, I'll go clean. How many people do we have right now? Mm-hmm. How many people are here right now? 36? Okay. I need 10 people to tell me to go clean. 10 people. And that'll be enough. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. We're at 4 so far. I guess we'll count almost familiar 5. Sorry, I need 5 more people, chat. It's not gonna work. 5, 6. We're at 6 so far. Or are we at 7? I think we're at 7. 3 more. 2 more. No, you have to actually say the words. I didn't see you say the words. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Damn it. Fine. You're heartless. Every one of you are heartless. All I want to do. Well, I was expecting people to be too chill and relaxed. Or not even here and just lurking, but apparently y'all are actively lurking. Damn. How could this happen to me? Da, 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 da. Fine. Let me just. We're gonna do one last run, okay? I'm gonna do one last. I can't believe that watermelon hasn't grown. By the way, that is infuriating. All right. I know, right? Chat's so ungrateful. Damn. Okay. Oh, I swore. There you go. There's my stupid little roof that I need to do. Nah. Alright. Welcome to our Halloween scene. I guess we can do the, well. Give me a second. There we are. Barry, hello, Barry. We're just coming to the end, unfortunately. Unfortunately. But I know what I should do, chat. I'm gonna do real quick. I'm a little worried that y'all are not gonna be here when I get back, so, You stay here, okay? Behave yourself while I'm gone. Mwah. I will see you later. It'll be fine. No. I have to make sure you're still here when I get back. Mwah. Y'all are very lovely. And just one last thing. Let's see what we have here. Take this kiss upon the brow, and in parting from you now, thus much let me avow, you are not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream. Yet if hope has flown away in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep, while I weep, while I weep. Oh God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? Oh God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream? Edgar Allan Poe, Dream Within a Dream. All right, let's see who I can. Bunny, Beaming Eye Bunny. All right, chat. We are rating in, focusing on ASMR right now because, well, that's what we're seeing we're in. So I can't rate into Dar because it would not be the right vibe. But Beaming Eye Bunny is live. I like them all. The Chick Tries is live. Wait a second. I love them. Okay, we're gonna go right into them. Wait, no, but Beaming Eye Bunny's here a lot. Fine. We'll go right into Beaming Eye Bunny. They're cute. They're adorable. I love them. Alright, lovelies. Okay, you can have chicken nuggets. There you go, chat. Copy the married message. And we'll send you off in 5, 4, 3, 2. Bye, lovelies.